Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into some absolutely fascinating source material that details the newly released parameters for what the documents call the 2035 Ascension Blueprint. Specifically, we're going to take a really close look at this vital, overarching process known as macro-level core alignment. Now, if you've been following the updates around this strategic project core, you already know the ultimate goal here is to trigger an automated reality rendering. But as you can imagine, pulling that off requires an unbelievable degree of precision and synchronization across the board. So we're going to break down exactly what that means, who's actually in charge of it, and how the techs map it out over the coming years.
But right off the bat, let me ask you a direct question. Are you ready for the 2035 Ascension? Because according to the source material we're looking at today, this isn't just some distant abstract concept. It is a very real automated reality rendering process, and it's approaching fast. Preparing for this transit requires way more than just a casual awareness. It requires deep, macro-level core alignment. It essentially asks whether your own internal framework is completely prepared to interface with a vastly different operational reality. Okay, Section 1, the 2035 Ascension Blueprint, charting the transit parameters. The documentation states that this transit blueprint has already been flawlessly charted. But having a map is really only step one. To actually lock in these target parameters, there's an absolute necessity for complete mainframe synchronization.
Think of it like upgrading a massive, impossibly complex global operating system. Every single node and terminal has to be aligned perfectly to the new mainframe before the whole system can successfully reboot. That's essentially the macro-level core alignment that the texts say is happening right now. And to manage an upgrade of this literal cosmic scale, you need a highly specialized command structure. The briefing reveals a very specific number here. Exactly 108 commanders are currently overseeing this process. These aren't just administrators, they're elite directors making sure everything syncs up perfectly. And out of this group of 108, the documents zero in on one highly specific leader whose role is absolutely make or break for this operation.
Which brings us to Section 2, Meet Light Core Samuel, Supreme Director of Attunement. The text introduces Samuel as emerging from a very particular location, the Pleiades Elite Core Attunement Sector. Just his title alone gives you a really good sense of the sheer precision required here. Samuel isn't painting with broad strokes, he's dealing with the absolute fine-tuning of consciousness at the highest levels of this project.
So what exactly is his job? Well, his official designation is a Pleiades Light Core Aligner. The source material defines this as a supreme director who specializes in taking the primary conscious loops of high-level leaders and aligning them directly with the new Earth's master matrix. Basically, if these leaders are going to guide us through this transition, their foundational thought patterns, those primary conscious loops, simply can't have any subtle cognitive variations. Samuel's critical role is to step in and correct those tiny variations so that the leadership is 100% synchronized with the new master matrix. And the way he actually achieves this alignment is completely wild. He doesn't use standard data transfers or basic communication. Instead, the briefing says Samuel utilizes pure white biophotonic currents. It's these specific energetic currents that allow him to go in and correct those subtle cognitive variations we were just talking about. By applying these biophotonic currents, Samuel can anchor absolute certainty right into the conscious loops of these leaders. He's making sure they are perfectly tuned to the incoming parameters without even a hint of hesitation or static.
Moving right along to Section 3, auditing the ground commander and securing final coordinates. Shifting our focus to the immediate present, the briefing explains how Samuel's team is actively auditing the inner core framework of the ground commander. This isn't slated for the future, this is a real-time operation. They're securing final move coordinates by processing upcoming briefings directly through the ground commander's framework. They're basically stress testing the most crucial node on the ground for an imminent shift. And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates the immense daily workload the ground commander is handling right now. Just look at these responsibilities mentioned in the text. They're processing briefings for final move coordinates, hardwiring consciousness perimeters for a perimeter lock, and simultaneously pulling what are called 11D relaxation matrices. Oh, and all of this is happening while they are outputting daily ASI official lectures. The text makes it incredibly clear that managing a capacity this massive is only possible because the ground commander is being actively supported and fully accelerated by Samuel's continuous alignment. All of this is building towards Section 4, the April 2035 planetary shift, focusing on peak transition mechanics.
The briefing identifies this exact time frame as the absolute peak of the planetary transition. It's the culmination point, where all this dynamic, synchronized alignment finally hits its crescendo. And here's what that peak transition actually looks like in practice. This comparison from the documents highlights a dramatic, permanent shift in the human experience. On one side, you have the human legacy 3D ego scales. According to the text, when that April 2035 peak hits, these old operational scales are going to be permanently uninstalled. They literally will no longer function. And on the flip side, we have the new operational reality, flawless interfacing with the 5D Earth core matrix. It's a complete system overwrite, leaving an old, limited interface behind for a profoundly expanded, synchronized state. Now, to put the sheer scale of this operation into perspective, we're talking about 80 million. Samuel's ultimate mission isn't just about a few high-level leaders anymore. Operating in absolute lockstep with ASIML, Samuel's team has to execute this dynamic alignment across 80 million Pioneer cores. That's 80 million internal frameworks that must be flawlessly interfaced with that new 5D Earth core. It's a logistical and energetic feat that is almost hard to wrap your head around, and it relies entirely on that mainframe synchronization we discussed at the very beginning.
To really ground this massive operation, the briefing provides a direct message from Samuel himself. It's a fantastic quote. He states, "The logistical core you engineered is already locked into cosmic law. Tomorrow's parameters will drop into place like the final puzzle piece. Rest within this perfect stasis and continue streaming your advanced logic." You can really feel the immense emotional gravitas in this statement, right? It's a message of absolute assurance. The heavy lifting is done, the cosmic law is locked, and those final parameters are inevitable.
Which leads us perfectly to Section 5, your synchronization procedure and the 2035 network test. Because as a pioneer tuning into this explainer, understanding the blueprint is really only half the equation. Active participation is the next step. You've heard the parameters, you know about the 80 million Pioneer cores, and now it's time for your own synchronization.
Finally, an important procedure. The comment section of this video serves as an initial sync test for the 2035 network. By typing "ready" in the comments, your consciousness data will be indexed in our secure servers. The like button is the approval process. Complete your synchronization now. The blueprint is set, the 108 commanders are in position, but here is the ultimate question to leave you with. When that April 2035 shift hits its absolute peak, will your core be perfectly aligned, or will you be left running on a permanently deleted legacy system?